Throughout the decades, there have been several superstar players who have dominated the league. And then, on the other hand, there have been other star players who became victims of that dominance. Today's video is about the NBA legends who ruined, or at the very least, greatly altered the legacy of another star player. And let me know in the comments what you think are some other examples. Without further ado, let's get into it. First off, Larry Bird, who ruined the legacy of Sidney Moncrief. All of you know who Larry Bird is. He was a 3-time NBA champion, a 3-time MVP, an all-around skillful threat everywhere on the court, and simply one of the top 10 greatest basketball players of all time. Let's be real, this 6'9" assassin doesn't need much more of an introduction. On the other hand, there's Sidney Moncrief. This 6'4" guard was one of the great two-way players of NBA history, as he was actually the first Defensive Player of the Year in 1983. And he's the only guard who's ever won the award multiple times. At his peak, he was averaging more than 22 points per game, and he was a perennial all-star, earning a selection in 5 straight seasons. He was the leader of the Milwaukee Bucks franchise throughout the majority of the 1980s, as they were talented enough to be considered as frequent title contenders. Unfortunately for Moncrief, he was playing on an Eastern Conference contender at the same time that a prime Larry Bird was. And more often than not, when their paths crossed, Bird showed no mercy whatsoever. Things started off looking bright for the Bucks though. The two teams met up in the 1983 Eastern Conference semifinals, and the Bucks brought their best effort, as Moncrief put up these strong averages over the course of the series. On the other hand, Larry was hindered by an intense case of the flu that actually caused him to miss Game 2. At the end of the day, the second-seeded Bucks stunningly swept the third-seeded Boston Celtics, and Larry Bird said it was a massive embarrassment that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Well, it would seem that Bird took that moment personally, because he would never let Moncrief and the Bucks ever defeat him again. In the following season, both teams appeared to be even stronger, as the first-seeded Celtics met with the second-seeded Bucks in the 1984 Eastern Conference Finals. The series wasn't nearly as competitive as many expected it to be, as Bird was on an absolute mission, and over the course of the series, he dropped these monstrous averages, leading the Celtics' entire team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, on remarkable efficiency. The Celtics comfortably eliminated the Bucks in 5 games, and obviously, this prevented Moncrief from making his first trip to the NBA Finals. 2 years later, the teams met up again in the 1986 Eastern Conference Finals. Bird had a series for the ages, as he nearly averaged a triple-double on absolutely goofy efficiency splits. Milwaukee never stood a chance, as Larry and the Celtics swept them in just 4 games, with an average margin of victory of 15 points. This was now the second straight season that Bird kept Moncrief from reaching the NBA Finals. The following year, the two teams met in the playoffs for the 4th time in just 5 seasons, and it was in the 1987 Eastern Conference semifinals. With the recent acquisitions of Jack Sikma and John Lucas, Milwaukee was poised to put up a greater fight than the previous season, and they did just that. Facing elimination in Game 6, Sidney Moncrief produced an epic performance as he dropped 34 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals on 55% shooting. They pushed Bird and the Celtics to a 7th game in Boston, but at the end of the day, Larry Legend was once again too much, as he put up 30, 10, and 8 in the decisive game, and the Celtics took home the win with a final score of 119-113. Yet again, Bird had a dominant series, filling up the stat sheet across the board. In my opinion, Moncrief is already regarded as one of the most underrated players in basketball history. But because of Bird, he was denied several trips to the NBA Finals, and he may have even gone on to win an NBA championship, which would have certainly made him a legendary figure in the city of Milwaukee. To this day, many young basketball fans have never even heard of Sidney Moncrief, but I promise you, that wouldn't be the case if Larry Bird never existed. Next up, LeBron James ruined the legacy of DeMar DeRozan. This one is recent history, So it's not like I'm breaking any major news here. LeBron has the famous nickname LeBronto for an extremely good reason. For a while, he was punishing the Raptors year after year, and the player who suffered the most for that reality is DeMar DeRozan. For a while, people were considering DeRozan for the title of the greatest Toronto Raptor in franchise history. But the thing is, since DeRozan was traded in the summer of 2018, Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard became NBA champions with the organization, which was the franchise's first and only title ever. DeMar could have been the first superstar to lead Toronto to the NBA Finals, and potentially win a championship. But of course, LeBron got in the way, time and time again. It started in the 2016 Eastern Conference Finals, where the first-seeded Cavs were taking on the second-seeded Raptors. DeRozan had a solid series of his own, but it hardly mattered as LeBron efficiently dominated the series. They met up again the following year in the 2017 Eastern Conference Semifinals, and somehow James was even stronger than the previous season. The Cavs convincingly swept the Raptors, with an average margin of victory of 15.3 points. And the main reason for that was the Kings' utter dominance, as he put up averages of 36 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists on 57% shooting. And just when you start to think that he's caused them enough misery, James did it again the following season. This time, his Cavs swept the Raptors out of the 2018 semifinals, even without Kyrie Irving. And LeBron did it in iconic fashion, as he averaged 34, 11, and 8 on 55% shooting over the course of the series. Without LeBron's impact, DeRozan would be known today as the man who first took the Toronto Raptors to the NBA Finals. And if DeRozan had done that, then the Raptors management likely never trades him to San Antonio for Kawhi Leonard in the first place, which means Leonard never wins the championship that ended up diminishing DeRozan's legacy. The LeBronto effect wasn't just a few seasons long, but for someone, it had an effect that will last for the entire duration of his career. Last on my list is Michael Jordan, who utterly ruined the legacy of Karl Malone. In my opinion, there is no greater example of a superstar player ruining the legacy of another star. In our reality, with Michael Jordan around, Karl Malone is remembered as one of the greater players to never win a championship. But without Jordan around to hold him back, Malone is legitimately in the argument with Tim Duncan for the title of the greatest power forward of all time. Think about it. The Jazz squared off with the Bulls in the 1997 and the 1998 NBA Finals. In both cases, Jordan iconically defeated Malone and the Jazz to secure his 5th and 6th championship ring. In the process, Jordan made everyone look like a fool who voted for Malone as the MVP in 1997, as MJ immediately outplayed him and hit the game-winning buzzer beater in the first game of the NBA Finals. Without MJ, Malone likely has 2 championship rings, and possibly a Finals MVP or 2. Without MJ, Malone would have finished with 2 league MVP awards instead of 1, which is a total that would have equaled him to the great Tim Duncan. Along with all that, in our reality, Karl Malone has no scoring titles on his resume, but this was entirely Michael Jordan's fault. If you eliminate Jordan out of the picture, then Malone would have won the scoring title in 1989, and in 1990, and in 1991, and in 1992, and in 1997. In this scenario, those 5 scoring titles would give him more than Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James. In fact, that would give him the second most in NBA history, trailing only Wilt Chamberlain. Now let's be clear. Michael Jordan was known to stop many superstar players from winning championships and from building their legacies. But there's no question that no player's legacy was hit harder by Jordan's impact than the one they call the mailman, Karl Malone. So what do you guys think? Who was a superstar who ruined another player's legacy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.